It's Sunday night. You're lying in bed, scrolling through your brokerage app. Your portfolio's been sitting there for 8 months, same allocations, same positions, nothing's really changed. The balance is up a little, down a little, mostly flat. And there's this quiet voice in your head asking, am I doing this right? Should I be doing something different? You read articles about people who doubled their money in tech stocks. You see posts about crypto millionaires. You hear about someone's cousin who retired early from real estate. And you wonder if you're missing something. If there's a move you should be making that you're not. Most people think investing in 2026 is about picking the right assets, finding the next big winner, timing the market correctly. But that's not actually what separates people who build lasting wealth from people who just chase returns. See, most people approach investing like they're trying to solve a puzzle. What should I buy? When should I sell? What's going to go up? They're looking for the answer, the secret, the edge. But here's what nobody tells you. The difference between mediocre investors and wealthy investors isn't what they buy. It's the system they build around their investments. The wealthiest people I know don't have better stock picks. They have better investment architectures. They've structured their financial lives so that investing happens automatically, consistently, and strategically regardless of market conditions, emotions, or external noise. I'm Zick, and what I'm about to walk you through isn't about hot stocks or market timing. It's about the 3 structural moves that turn investing from a hobby into a wealth-building machine. And more importantly, what happens to you psychologically when you make them. Move number 1. Automate your investment rhythm. The first move is deceptively simple. Establish an automated investment cadence that you never touch. Not try to invest when you have extra money, not invest when the market looks good. A fixed amount, a fixed schedule, completely automated. For most people starting out, that's $500 to $1,000 a month going into a diversified portfolio. Every month. No exceptions. And here's the invisible threshold this creates. After about 6 months of consistent automation, something shifts in your brain. Investing stops being a decision you make. It becomes a process that happens to you. You stop asking, should I invest this month? The same way you don't ask, should I pay my electricity bill this month? It's just done. Automatic. Removed from the realm of emotional decision-making, and that removal is everything. Let me show you what happens when investing is still a manual decision. You get paid, you pay your bills, you've got $1,800 left over. You think, I should probably invest some of this. But then you see the market's down 3% this week. Maybe you should wait until it stabilizes. Or maybe you should keep some cash because you're thinking about buying a new laptop next month. Or maybe you'll just invest next paycheck when you're more certain. And next paycheck comes. Same internal negotiation, same paralysis. 6 months later, you've invested twice. Maybe 3 times. Sporadically. At random entry points. With no real strategy, you're not building wealth. You're dabbling. But when you automate, all of that noise disappears. The market's down 3%, doesn't matter. The system still executes. You're thinking about a laptop, doesn't matter. The system still executes. You're uncertain about the economy, doesn't matter. The system still executes. You've removed your psychology from the equation. And your psychology was the problem. Now let's talk about what this actually produces over time. Let's say you automate $750 a month into a diversified index fund portfolio. That's $9,000 a year. Average market return historically is around 10% annually. Let's be conservative and call it 8%. Year 5, you've invested $45,000. With returns, it's worth about $55,000. Year 10, you've invested $90,000. It's worth about $137,000. Year 20, you've invested $180,000. It's worth about $438,000. You didn't pick stocks, you didn't time the market, you didn't get lucky, you just showed up consistently for 20 years. And here's the part that changes everything. By year 15, your investment returns start exceeding your contributions. You're putting in $9,000 a year, your portfolio's generating $12,000 in growth. Your money is working harder than you are. Move number 2, build tax-advantaged infrastructure. The second move is about structure. Maximize your tax-advantaged accounts before touching taxable investing. This means maxing out your 401k, your IRA, your HSA if you have one, in that order. Most people don't do this. They contribute enough to get the company match, then they think I should invest more, and they open a taxable brokerage account. That's backwards. Here's why. Let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket. You invest $10,000 in a taxable account. You pay taxes on that income first, so you're really only investing $7,800 after tax. If you invest that same $10,000 in a traditional 401k, you invest the full $10,000 pre-tax. That extra $2,200 stays invested and compounds for decades. Over 30 years at 8% growth, that $2,200 becomes $17,000. Multiply that across every year you're investing, and the difference between tax-advantaged and taxable is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Same investment, same return. Massively different outcomes based purely on structure. And here's what this creates psychologically. When your tax-advantaged accounts are maxed, you're not just saving on taxes, you're building a fortress. That money is protected, creditor protected in many cases, sequestered from your impulses. You can't casually dip into your 401k to buy a car. You can't raid your IRA because you saw a deal on a vacation. The friction is built in, and that friction is your ally. It forces your future self to reap the benefits of discipline your present self already exercised. Meanwhile, someone with everything in a taxable brokerage has no protection. Market dips, they panic sell. They want a new gadget, they withdraw. They're constantly negotiating with themselves about whether to raid their investments, and over time, that negotiation erodes wealth. Move 3. Rebalance mechanically, not emotionally. The third move is about discipline. Rebalance your portfolio on a fixed schedule based on predetermined rules, not feelings. Most people never rebalance, or they rebalance when it feels right. Market's up, they don't want to sell winners. Market's down, they're too scared to buy more. So their portfolio drifts. What started as 60% stocks, 40% bonds, becomes 80-20 because stocks outperformed. Now they're taking more risk than they intended without even realizing it. But when you rebalance mechanically once a year, same date, no emotion, you're doing something powerful. You're systematically selling high and buying low. When stocks have had a great year and bonds lagged, you sell some stocks at their peak and buy bonds at their low. When bonds outperform, you reverse it. You're not smarter than the market, but you're using the market's volatility to your advantage through pure structure. And here's the deeper transformation these 3 moves create. You become someone who trusts systems over instincts. That's rare. Most people live their entire lives trusting their gut, and in most domains, that works okay. But in investing, your gut is wrong, consistently, predictably. Your gut tells you to sell when the market crashes. Your gut tells you to buy when everything's euphoric. Your gut tells you to chase performance and abandon strategy. Your gut is optimized for survival in a prehistoric environment, not wealth building in a modern market. But when you commit to automation, tax structure, and mechanical rebalancing, you're overriding your instincts with architecture. And that ability to design a system you trust more than your feelings that transfers everywhere, you become someone who can execute long-term plans, who can stay disciplined when everyone around you is panicking, who can delay gratification for decades. That's not just an investor. That's a different kind of person. And here's how these moves change the way you experience market volatility in 2026. Let's say we get a correction. Market drops 25% over 3 months. For someone without a system, that's terror. Their portfolio just got decimated. They're watching CNBC every morning, wondering if they should sell to stop the bleeding. But when you've got automated investing, you're calm, maybe even excited, because your system is still executing. You're buying stocks at a 25% discount every single month. You're dollar cost averaging right into the bottom. Same market event, completely different emotional experience. Or let's say inflation stays elevated and bonds have a rough year. Without mechanical rebalancing, you'd probably avoid bonds entirely. They're losing money. Why would you buy more? But your rebalancing system doesn't care about performance. It cares about allocation. So you're buying bonds when they're cheap, positioning yourself perfectly for when rates eventually stabilize and bonds recover. You're not smarter, you're just systematic. And here's what people get wrong about investing in 2026. They obsess over the details. Should I buy VTI or VOO? Should I rebalance quarterly or annually? Should I use limit orders or market orders? Those questions feel productive, but they're not what matters. What matters is whether you're maxing your tax advantage space, whether you're automating your contributions, whether you're actually investing consistently at all. Let me give you some numbers. The difference between VTI and VOO, both excellent S&P 500 index funds, is maybe 0.01% in expense ratio. On a $100,000 portfolio, that's $10 a year. But the difference between maxing your 401k and not maxing it, that's thousands of dollars in tax savings annually. The difference between investing every month versus sporadically, that's tens of thousands in compounding over a decade. People optimize the pennies and ignore the thousands. They debate fund selection while contributing inconsistently. They research individual stocks while their 401k sits at the company match minimum. Get the structure right first. Then you can optimize the details. And here's something that happens when you've executed these 3 moves for 5 years. Your relationship with your career changes. Not because you're rich, but because you've got a growing investment portfolio that's completely independent of your job. You're in a meeting. Leadership announces a reorganization that feels political and short-sighted. You're frustrated. Before the investment foundation, you swallow it. You need this job. You need the paycheck. After the investment foundation, you speak up, professionally. But honestly, I'm concerned this approach is going to create more problems than it solves. Here's why. You're not threatening to quit. You're not being insubordinate. You're just willing to have the conversation. Because in the back of your mind, you know you've got $150,000 invested and growing. You're not financially independent yet, but you're not desperate either. And that subtle shift changes outcomes. Sometimes leadership listens, sometimes they don't. But you negotiated from a position of having options, not fear. And people who have options get treated differently. But here's where people destroy their own progress. They execute these moves for 3 years. Their portfolio is $80,000. They're feeling successful. Then they convince themselves they've earned a break. They stop the automation just for a few months while I save for this other thing. They cash out $15,000 for a down payment on a boat. I'll pay it back. They abandon their rebalancing schedule because the market's different now. And just like that, they've dismantled the entire system. The automation stops, the compounding pauses, the discipline erodes. A year later, they're back to sporadic investing and their portfolio's barely grown. Listen to me, these 3 moves aren't a project, they're a permanent operating system. You don't graduate from automation. You don't earn the right to stop rebalancing. You don't get to cash out early without consequence. The structure is what produces the outcome. Remove the structure and the outcome disappears. Every dollar you pull out of your investment system early isn't just that dollar. It's the compounded future value of that dollar plus all the behavioral momentum you're killing. Let's say you've been investing for 4 years. You've got $70,000 in your portfolio. You want to buy a truck. You cash out $25,000. That $25,000 left invested at 8% for 20 years would have been $117,000. So you're not buying a $25,000 truck. You're buying a $117,000 truck in future purchasing power. But worse than the money is what you're doing to your psychology. You've just taught yourself that investment accounts are available for lifestyle purchases, that discipline is optional, that long-term plans can be abandoned when something shinier appears, and that lesson is expensive. Because once you've broken the seal, you'll do it again and again. The people who build wealth treat their investment accounts like they're radioactive. They don't touch them, they don't borrow against them. They don't even think about them except during their annual rebalance. That psychological barrier is worth more than the returns. And here's what people don't see about these three moves. They're not just about growing wealth. They're about building a system that protects you from yourself. Automation protects you from inconsistency. Tax structure protects you from unnecessary taxation. Mechanical rebalancing protects you from emotional decisions. Layer after layer of protection against the psychological traps that destroy most investors. And the beautiful thing is, once the system's in place, it requires almost no maintenance. You spend maybe 2 hours a year reviewing your allocations and rebalancing, maybe another hour adjusting your automation if your income changes. That's it. The rest of the time, the system runs itself, and you get to live your life without constantly wondering if you're doing the right thing with your money. That mental freedom is worth as much as the wealth itself. Look, I'm not saying these three moves will make you a millionaire by December 2026. They won't. But if you execute them consistently, automate your investing, max your tax advantage space, rebalance. Mechanically, you're going to look back on 2026 as the year you stopped guessing and started building, the year you became someone who trusts structure over emotion, the year you realized that wealth isn't about picking winners. It's about building a system that wins regardless of what you pick. So here's what I want you to do. This week, set up the automation. Whatever amount you can sustain, even if it's just $300 a month, lock it in. Check your 401k contribution. Are you maxing it? If not, increase it by 1 or 2%. Do that every quarter until you hit the max. Set a calendar reminder for 1 year from today. That's your annual rebalancing date. When it comes, execute mechanically. No emotion. That's it. 3 moves. Simple. Not easy, but simple. Your future self is watching. They're hoping you'll build the system now so they can enjoy the freedom later. Don't let them down. This is Zik. Make 2026 the year the architecture changed everything.